It's 101.9 KHBHS, the most popular radio station in town. Tonight is New Year's Eve, and we'll be saying goodbye to the 30s and hello to the 40s. Tonight we're going to take some time to walk back through the 30s and roaring 20s. We're going to start it off with the Red Scare.
In April 1919, authorities discovered a plot for mailing 36 bombs to prominent members of the U.S. political and economic establishment: J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, U.S. Attorney General Alexander Mitchell Palmer, and immigration officials. On June 2, 1919, in 8 cities, 8 bombs simultaneously exploded. One target was the Washington, D.C. house of U.S. Attorney General Palmer, where the explosion killed the bomber, whom evidence indicated was an Italian-American radical from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Afterwards, Palmer ordered the U.S. Justice Department to launch the Palmer raids. Initially, the press praised the raids. The Washington Post said, "There is no time to waste on hair-splitting over the infringement of liberty," and the New York Times said that the injuries inflicted upon the arrested were souvenirs of the new attitude of aggression which had been assumed by the federal agents against the Reds and suspected Reds. Palmer then warranted that a government-deposing left-wing revolution would begin on May 1st, 1920, May Day, the International Workers' Day. When it failed to happen, he was ridiculed and lost much credibility. And now I'm going to switch off with my co-host, who will be talking about bootlegging.
Bootlegging was an illegal transport and distribution of liquor, usually from Canada or other foreign countries. The word comes from smugglers' hidden flasks of liquor in boots and under the pants. Bootlegging became an industry for gangs and other organized crime. Prohibition had long been on the minds of those involved in the temperance movement as far back as the 1700s. There were organized efforts to control the consumption of the alcohol in the United States. At the first, most temperance groups advocated moderation. Many women got involved in the movement and played a major role in the enactment of the 1920s prohibition. This was because they were often victims of the alcohol abuse in their husbands, leading to domestic violence. Prohibition in the 1920s became a reform measure pioneered by the progressives. Both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party claimed a sizable portion of progressives at the time. What they were looking for was a government solution of social problems. The main goal of the 1920s prohibition was to stop the drinking habits for the workers. The whole thing turned out to be a mess. Enforcement of the 1920s prohibition was a nightmare. Criminal enlightenment saw a huge profit in bootlegging. Law enforcement was viewed unfavorably by much of the population. Organization of crime were thought to have many police officials on their payroll. And now we will be taking a short commercial break.
Extra, something extra. Posies for the girlfriend? Yes, sir, and an extra blossom Elmer to wear in his buttonhole. Everyone likes that little something extra. A dozen rolls, and the baker tosses in an extra one to make it a baker's dozen. The butcher throws in an extra bone for the bow wow. Every locality has a different name for it. Way down east in New England, they call it something to boot. In the deep south, they call it lanyard. At your neighborhood service station, they call it Esso. The new Esso gives you premium performance, unexcelled at regular price. And the new Esso Extra is unexcelled at any price. Extra quick starts, extra power, extra anti-knock. You can take your choice. These two great gasolines are both extra value for the money.
For service that is tops and gas that's extra fine, there's a smile for every mile at the Esso sign. E-S-S-O makes your car go. Happy motoring.
And now that we're back, we'll be talking about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. At 10:30 on February 14th, 1929, 6 members of the Bugs Marone gang were sitting in a garage waiting for a consignment of illegal alcohol. Instead of a Cadillac arrived carrying 3 men dressed as policemen. They were accompanied by 2 men in civilian clothes. The policemen entered the building and told the 6 gangsters and John May, a mechanic worker in the garage, to stand in a row against the wall with their hands in the air. This was common procedure during the police raids, and the men did as they were told. The 2 civilians then entered the garage and mowed them down with submachine gun fire. Although it was assumed that the murders had been ordered by Al Capone, no one was ever convicted of the crime. And now to hear about our 31st president.
Herbert Clark Hoover was the 31st president of the United States. Hoover was originally a professional mining engineer and author. In the presidential election of the 1928, Hoover easily won the Republican nomination despite having no previous election office experience. America was prosperous at the time, leading to a landslide victory for Hoover over Democratic Al Smith. Hoover, who had made a small fortune in mining, was the first president to serve without salary. When the Wall Street crash of 1929 struck less than 8 months after he took office, Hoover tried to combat the ensured Great Depression with volunteer efforts, public works projects such as the Hoover Dam, tariffs such as the Smoot-Hawley tariff, and increased the corporate taxes. And now we're going to switch to the Dirty 30s.
The Dust Bowl of the Dirty 30s was a period of severe dust storms causing major ecological and agricultural damage to the American and Canadian prairie lands. The simplest acts of life, breathing, eating, taking a walk, were no longer simple. Children wore dust masks to school, and women hung wet sheets over their windows to keep dirt out of their homes. Farmers watched helplessly as their crops blew away. The Dust Bowl is a term coined by a reporter for the Washington Post, Evening Star, to describe the effects of severe wind erosion in the Great Plains during the 30s, caused by severe drought and lack of conservation practices. Now to cut to a message from our producers, Gallo Wine.
Say hello to Gallo.
Say hello to Gallo.
Say hello to Gallo.
Hello to Gallo wine.
The taste is better than other wines you've tried.
Discover Gallo flavor, the master vintner's pride. Say hello to Gallo. Hello to Gallo wine.
Franklin D. Roosevelt called a special congressional meeting on March 9th. Immediately, he began to submit reforms and recovery measures for congressional validation. On March 12, 1933, Roosevelt broadcast his first fireside chat over the radio to the American people, opening with the topic of the bank crisis. Primarily, he spoke on a variety of topics to inform the Americans and to have them support his domestic agendas. March 9th to June 16th came to be known as the 100 Days. And with this brings an end to our show for today. Happy New Year.